Okay. Does anybody need this for any reason? All right. Lifetime Happiness Potential by Valerie Fioravanti. It's Irish, right? Okay. The most important decision you make may be your dress. The bridal gown sets the tone for the entire wedding. Choose carefully, brides. You've got to stop dieting. You can't be a beautiful bride if your dress fits like a potato sack. Adgie pinched the new seam roughly, catching Lena's skin. Lena stamped her foot, sending loose pins rolling off the table. Her 6 bridesmaids scrambled after them with dog-like obedience, crawling across the floor in their mauve-colored slips. This was supposed to be their fitting, before Adgie had bet her seamstress fee that Lena had lost more weight and needed to be refitted again. Another 8 pounds after she reached her goal weight 2 months ago. Lena was told to think of every quarter pound as a stick of butter, and she imagined another 32 sticks trailing after her like a makeshift train, dissolving into pools of grease as she walked down the aisle. Lena's wedding dress was a reproduction of a flapper dress from the 20s in an aged antique color that was, according to her mother, too far from white. It was a shift style, but wasn't formless. She found it tucked in the back pages of a bridal magazine. In the picture, the dress hugged the model's curves in a way that whispered. On Lena, the sample gown looked much less fluid, but she had been determined to change her body, not the dress. Her bridesmaids made the right cooing noises, praised her for the bold choice, and gulped back questions about the dresses they'd be wearing. When Lena's mother saw the dress, she said, "If you wear that, I won't come." Lena said, "I understand," and thrust her credit card at the clerk. She didn't believe her mother. Her sister Nikki had eloped, so that was her only chance to play mother of the bride. What Lena most loved about the dress was the expression on the model's face in the picture she saw. Her head was tilted slightly upwards, eyelids at half-mast, complexion shining as if it lit from within by candlelight. The model seemed caught in some perfect moment of interior joy. When the dress fit Lena the way it fit the model, she would exude this ecstatic certainty, carry it with her down the aisle and into the ever after of her marriage. When she met her goal weight, the dress did fit exactly as she imagined. As she twirled, the silky fringe wrapped her in a circle of motion. Her curves had sharpened, and her silhouette was elegant from every angle. Lena exuded ecstasy, if not certainty, as the fringe compelled fingers towards its dance. But that moment had already come and gone. The proposal is the first official wedding act, and as such is a moment that will be asked about and retold throughout the years of your marriage. Do you want this story to be a dull and ordinary one? Is that any way to begin a life with your beloved? Jack was acting strangely. Tickets to Les Miserables, which his own sister had seen for her anniversary and called the musical version of a chick flick. Dinner at one of the city's most romantic restaurants, straight from an article she had tacked to her fridge last year. Spur of the moment, he said, when he hated doing things last minute. He never once cursed the midtown traffic, never flinched at the pre-theater prices posted on the wall of the parking garage. He looked so confined by the suit he bought for his sister's wedding, only 2 years old but already too tight across the shoulders and chest. The waiter brought a single red rose to the table. Jack tickled her nose with it. "Just tell me the bad news," she said. Lena was sure he'd been laid off, and he wanted the memory of the splurge to last through the long months of video rentals and aimless walks through the neighborhood. "Bad news?" Jack's eyebrows jutted into V formation. "We're celebrating." "Celebrating what?" Lena asked. "Being in love." He handed her the rose and cupped her fingers around the bud. "Celebrating love?" She dropped the rose onto her plate and watched him watch her. "What are you up to?" Was he cheating? He didn't look caught in a lie. He had that goony grin she first saw back in junior high when he took a week-long beating from the other boys for bringing daisies to school on Valentine's Day. Jack motioned toward the rose with his wine glass. "Will you just please look at it?" "Well, it's not from you," she said. He picked it up again, brought the bud to his nose. "Look closer." Lena leaned in, searching for some weird flaw. Jack loved pointing out oddities. She shrugged. "Take it." Lena plucked a petal. "He loves me." Plucked another one. "He loves me not." "One more," he said. "Why?" He plucked a petal and tossed it in her direction. "Because I do love you." He slipped from his chair onto his knees, digging his finger into the bud. Lena didn't catch on until the ring appeared, trailing more petals. It was his grandmother's ring, a square and chunky setting with a dark yellow gold band. Lena would be a younger bride than Nicky, who'd been 22 when she married Henry, wooed by a weekend in the Catskills spent ordering room service from a suite with a heart-shaped bed and jacuzzi. Lena held out her palm, and Jack handed the ring to her, his lips quivering between outrage and amusement. She wanted to feel the weight before he put it on her finger. When she looked up, his face had gone still, as if freeing her to disappoint him. In kindergarten, he told her she shouldn't play Catwoman because Batman would never marry a criminal. She could imagine telling that story to their children. She could imagine the children, a girl with Jack's dimpled smile and a mischievous boy with dirt-smudged cheeks. She offered the ring back to him, and he slipped it onto her finger. The wedding march played over the sound system as the waiter brought champagne, holding the bottle high above him as he came to the table. The entire restaurant began to cheer. They toasted each other, sipping slowly from the tall crystal flutes. But Lena was pulled from the moment by the gawking of the other diners as they collectively scrutinized her lifetime happiness potential. Brides, don't be thrown off by the wedding jitters. They are a natural reaction to this dramatic, life-changing event. Discuss your fears with friends and family if necessary, and accept their assurances. Cold feet are so common they should be on your checklist. Lena's sister Nikki, who was 7 months pregnant by her mystery guy, had been banned from the wedding by maternal decree. Nikki was the more obedient child and refined to ignore their mother, as Lena had asked. Nikki promised, bearing labor, to watch Lena get married from the back row of the church. Nikki knew Lena hated to lose an argument, even by default, and was making the wedding favors. Mauve lace pouches of Jordan almonds and a heart-shaped pin with a mauve ribbon that said, "Jack and Lena together forever," to atone. "Why did you marry Harry?" Lena asked as she watched Nikki make perfect glue trails. Nikki wouldn't let her help. The kids were with her ex-husband's parents for the night, and that was help enough for her sister. "Well, he asked me," Nikki said, without bitterness or nostalgia. Henry left her with 3 children under 5 to raise alone. "Because he asked you? That's your reason?" Lena didn't know why her tone was so sharp. She had heard worse. "He always smelled nice," Nikki said, with a smirk. "And he was the first man I met who hated the taste of alcohol." "Well, did you love him?" "Maybe it's different with you and Jack because you're the girl he always wanted." Nikki picked up the ribbon she was about to glue, as if reading the message for the first time. "I know he's good to you, and I hope he stays that way. But we'll just raise our kids together if he doesn't, like Mom and the aunts, only without all the nonsense they tolerated because of that divorce is a mortal sin bullshit." Lena stared, an old habit she had mostly left behind. "You wanted her to kick Pop out?" "I'd have packed his bags and called a cab." Nikki shifted in her chair, adding a pillow to support her middle back, and went back to gluing Jack and Lena together forever ribbons to white plastic hearts. A married couple's first home is the physical embodiment of their relationship. It should represent not the bride or the groom's individual taste, but their shared sensibilities. Brides, don't neglect your groom's tastes and needs. At exit 66, a quarter of a mile. Lena adjusted the shoulder strap where it rubbed her underarm. She hated long car rides with traffic. This one was well over 2 hours. "The traffic won't always be this bad," Jack said. "It's Sunday morning. This is probably as good as it gets." "Well, that can't be true." Jack's voice lacked authority. The Long Island Expressway was notorious for traffic jams. "We don't need 4 bedrooms, Jack." She didn't want to live in Suffolk County. "It's in our price range." Jack didn't slow down as the exit curved, and Lena's stomach lurched with the sudden shifts in direction. "It's in the boonies," she said, although the street they were driving on wasn't much different from the other streets they'd looked at closer to the city. Jack pointed out a construction site that looked like a half-built strip mall. "We could both get jobs out here." They passed an intersection where a construction crane hung above an office building. "The boonies are booming." "I like the job I have, Jack." The building was ugly, an unadorned rectangle with green-colored glass. Jack helped renovate a landmark building last year. That one was made of brick. "No, you don't," he said. Lena was a customer service representative at HBO. It wasn't the kind of job you liked, but she was lucky to have it. They generally hired college grads, and it paid as well as construction. She was the only neighborhood girl she knew with her own apartment. "Well, the people are cool, and I just don't want to switch." "And I thought you were the adventurous one." He pointed out another building site, but she looked out the back window instead, toward home. "Moving to the suburbs is no adventure." It came out mean, but Jack didn't seem to mind. "Well, what do you see?" he asked as they turned off the main road. This street was residential. The houses seemed to come in 4 basic styles. The landscaping was identical: lawn, border, hedge, tree, the twilight zone. "Well, what's wrong with this?" Jack rolled down his window. "It smells nice, like nature." The cold wind raised the hair on her arms. "It's creepy." Jack slowed down to cross train tracks. "You want to live in an apartment your whole life?" "I have lived in an apartment my whole life," she said. "And so have you." "Well, don't you want better?" "What's better about this exactly?" You knew what they were supposed to think, but, as usual, couldn't wrap her own ideas around the prevailing view. Well, maybe it would be nice to have a house, but being out here reminded her of the yearly visits to her grandparents' graves with everything within sight neatly arranged and manicured. "Fuck, Lena, we're getting married." His fingers strummed the steering wheel and accidentally sounded the horn. "Well, where do you want to live?" Lena's street had 3 restaurants that she liked, and even Jack admitted the pizza place a few blocks down was Brooklyn good. "You already live with me most of the time. Your apartment is too small." Jack pulled the car into a driveway. There was a minivan in front of them. If they moved here, how many years before Jack drove one of those monsters off a car lot? "I don't want our kids to grow up in the city." "We don't have kids." Jack unbuckled his seatbelt and opened the door. "Please don't. I don't want to live here, Jack." "What?" He looked over at the realtor, a rumpled blonde woman having a smoke, and lowered his voice. "We just spent 2.5 hours getting here." Lena thought the ding-ding-ding of the car door reminder might actually drive her mad. "If you love me, you'll shut the door and drive away. Please?" Jack got out and walked over to the realtor. Lena didn't budge. She watched him talk to the woman, shake her hand, then slowly return to the car. As he backed out of the driveway, he said, "We're stopping to eat on the way home, and you're not having any of that leafy salad shit. This diet's making you fucking Fruit Loops." Writing your own vows makes your wedding ceremony personal and unique. Just like your love in the course of your future life together. Sharpen those pencils, brides and grooms. Lena wrote, "You are my truest friend, and I take you as my husband," and crossed it out. Wedding vows were supposed to be more romantic, more dripping with gooey love. Jack was in her kitchen. He moved her table over to the window so he could write by sunlight. He left her toaster, her radio, and her box of Cheerios sitting in the middle of the floor where the table used to be. Now his nose nearly touched the notepad as he wrote, and wrote, and wrote. He didn't seem to have any trouble getting his thoughts on paper. Lena chewed through 3 pencils in the next hour. She had eraser shavings all over her tongue, and her breath smelled like synthetic rubber. She had rewritten, "You are my truest friend," 7 times on 3 different sheets of paper. Lena was stumped. How do you write gooey love for someone who let you pretend his G.I. Joe was really Ken on a date with Barbie? Gooey love was fleeting, one-dimensional. She and Jack already shared their lives. Getting married only acknowledged what already was between them. "Want to hear mine?" he asked from the kitchen. He was beside her before she had time to answer. Okay." She turned her paper over so he couldn't see what she'd written. "I take you as my wife because my life begins and ends with you. Your love fills me up and makes me stronger. I want you as my wife because the story of our life has always been love." Gooey love extravaganza. His hair stuck out on his left side from leaning. Jack had never seemed so flawed, yet so perfect. "What do you think?" he asked, but Lena didn't want to think. Let's both use yours." She stirred him to the bedroom by his belt loops in order to end the conversation. A bridal shower honors the bride and allows her friends and family to celebrate her good fortune, as is fitting with attention and gifts. Prepare to be surprised brides unless you want to be immortalized wearing sweatpants and a hat made of bows and ribbons. "Come on, Franca," her maid of honor said as Lena went back inside her building to fetch her purse. "They won't keep the table if we're late." It was today. Lena knew it, and she double-checked her makeup in the bathroom mirror. A bit too soon, but Franca was a fidgety liar. When they were children, Franca's aunt had taken them to brunch down on Henry Street all 3 times she had visited. Now she wanted to take them there again to congratulate Lena on her upcoming marriage. The perfect shower ruse. Lena ran down all 3 flights, eager for the party to begin. Lena's bridesmaids, who seemed to move as one now, led her to a chair decorated with mauve crepe paper. "It's a blessing shower," they told her, then proceeded one by one throughout the room until everyone had spoken to recite bits of poetic advice and prayers to support the union of her soul with Jack's. There should be a fertile garden of love, but their togetherness should have space within it, and God, who created this bond, would protect it for the price of a mere prayer. Or maybe it was the garden that needed space, or God. Lena didn't have to worry, because these precious blessings were copied down in calligraphy on small squares of thick parchment, also mauve, and pinned to a wrap that was not quite mauve in this light, which they draped around her shoulders. Franca stood over her and joined the 2 ends so the shawl wouldn't slip from her shoulders. "It's not much, but I convinced them that making you wear the bow hat would detract from the sanctity of wearing your loved one's blessings." Lena clutched her hand before she moved away. Ever practical, Franca was somehow immune from the influence of the hive mind. Lena was grateful when a present was placed in her lap and she was commanded to let rip. Her mother's family, who lacked money, but not members or numbers, had banded together in groups of 3 to 6 to buy presents, mostly china and silverware, each group buying a piece of the set until she had the means to throw a feast in their honor. This coordinated effort was the conversational buzz of her shower. The parade of gifts was long and exhausting, with no food break for the bride. Lena didn't have room for an industrial-sized blender or a canister vacuum a child could ride. These gifts said, "All your family and friends support Jack's plan to buy that house in the burbs," in a neighborhood that wasn't walking distance from work, where the commuter rail pass cost a lot more than a subway token. When she argued with Jack about the wedding, even her future mother-in-law agreed, "This is the bride's day." It was such a magical phrase. She wished it could be transferred into other areas of her life, like on the phone with a customer at work or waiting in the token line on Monday mornings along with every other loser who forgot to plan ahead. But the bride magic was waning. Now they were planning their lives, shifting from getting to be married, she heard, "You must learn to bend. No marriage can succeed without sacrifice," from every woman she knew. Did the men in Jack's life give him the same advice? As Lena was kissed and cuddled by all her female friends and relatives, her bridesmaid staunchly protecting the blessings cape still draped across her shoulders, she wondered if all this frilly wedding fanfare merely camouflaged the hard sell of a one-sided contract. Brides, don't be thrown off by wedding jitters. They are a natural reaction to this dramatic, life-changing event. A romantic evening with your partner, sans wedding details, is usually a quick and easy cure. Jack canceled the night Lena's mother cooked for dinner to celebrate the booking of the wedding hall. Her mother still made red peppers stuffed with sausage and tortellini fra diavolo, Jack's favorites, rather than Lena's grilled eggplant or cheese ravioli. Perhaps she was annoyed with both of them when, after all but their coffee cups had been cleared and washed, she said, "I'm not sure I want to get married." "What happened?" Her mother put her cup down, and her fingers immediately went into overdrive. All the women in Lena's family worried through their hands. "Did Jack lose his job?" "No," Lena said. "He's still working steady." Her mother shook her head. "He's hit you." She pushed the saucer as far as her arm could reach. "If he hits before the wedding, he'll hit the children, too." "Jack has never hit me, Mom." Lena pushed her own cup away and stilled her hands only when she noticed the similarity. "He didn't hit you?" Her mother looked doubtful, as if Lena had confessed and then recanted. "No," she snapped. "Come on, you've known him his whole life." "Oh, Lena," her mother took the coffee cup poised at Lena's chin and walked it to the sink. "You can't get me worked up like you used to. I'm just too old now." She handed Lena the red velvet roller and thumped her fingers on the tablecloth. Her mother sat to finish the last of her coffee, sighing meaningfully between sips as she pointed out stray crumbs. For many couples, a wedding is a sacred ritual as well as an event. Catholic pre-marriage counseling, or pre-canna, provides a spiritual guidance for a couple as they join together. Remember your priorities, brides. A lovely wedding will last a day, but a lovely marriage is for life. Lena sat patiently in her gray folding chair and listened to a celibate man discuss sex. God's love is passionate, and he wants you to take the ecstasy you feel when you're close to him and share it with each other, Father Peralta said. Jack shifted forward in his chair and said, "Oh, yes, Father. We want that too. You are both children of this parish, so I know you've waited for God to bless this union." Lena was silent. Jack said, Of course, Father. We have sex." Lena was unprepared for her own honesty, but she kind of liked it. Her spine backed into the chair, stretched taller. Yes, but it was a choice we really struggled with, Father." Jack crossed himself twice, once for each lie. Father Peralta nodded slowly, patting the Bible he held in his hand. He was about to speak when Lena cut him off. "We had sex in a car on our second date, and we weren't virgins then either." Jack folded his hands over his face as if in prayer. "You're making a liar out of me." How did I make you lie exactly?" Lena asked. "Jack, perhaps we need to discuss why you felt the need to hide these truths from me," Father Peralta said. "The Lord, of course, knows." "Lena's not sure she believes in God anymore," Jack blurted. Father Peralta raised his left eyebrow, slowly shifting his glance her way. "Lena?" She shrugged. "I'm the truthful one. Are you here because you want God's approval to enter the sacrament of marriage?" "Not really," she said, resorting to the shrug again. "I'm here because Jack really wanted to get married in church, and I figured that would be okay." She paused, then cut off Father Peralta. "My family expects it too, so I'm trying to rise above my personal beliefs for my loved ones." Father Peralta raised his Bible and Lena thumped its cover. "Jesus is big on tolerance, no?" Father Peralta's lips parted again. When his pause went uninterrupted, he said, "Well, what do you think of that, Jack?" I think she's a bad Catholic." Jack's lowered lip trembled, recreating a stutter he had left behind in grade school. Lena couldn't help but shrug once more. It meant so much to have known Jack so long and so well that she listened without comment as Father Peralta sidestepped her doubts and lectured on the difference between following the letter and the spirit of God's law. Brides, don't be thrown off by wedding jitters. They are a natural reaction to this dramatic, life-changing event. When doubts seem particularly stressful, try to imagine life without your beloved. Now, doesn't that just work wonders for your perspective? I'm going to miss this, Franca said from the pile of pillows. Lena kept near the TV, discards from Nikki's embroidered crafts phrase. Why didn't you take over my lease? Lena had renewed last month, increasing the tension between her and Jack. You'd actually have to move first. Franca tried to adjust a pillow and channel surf at the same time. Lena's cheap cable was a job perk Franca and Jack both loved. Lena shrugged. I'm not ready to leave. I know you love it, Franca squealed as she found Captain Blood on the classic channel. Franca grew up playing cards and watching old movies with her grandparents, but Jack won't move in here. Well, he can't actually force me to leave. The pirate and his beautiful hostage were arguing nose to nose. Franca muted the sound. Are you sure about getting married? Well, why? Lena asked, distracted. Her attention had drifted in the impending on-screen kiss. Franca pointed at the screen. Fighting is great for a movie romance, but, well, Jack is the kind of guy you marry, right? Well, he's definitely a catch. Franca's nod swayed into a head shake. For a woman who wants to be married. I can be married and still be myself. Franca's nod stayed true with this time. I believe that you can, but Jack, well, he's not really a trailblazer, is he? What do you know about love? The doubt in Franca's voice was like heartburn. It hurt worse the harder she tried to swallow what it meant. Oh, just forget it. Franca switched off the movie and squeezed Lena's hand. I'm a lousy maid of honor. Lena didn't notice the tears until they dribbled off her chin. The wedding should always suit your needs and tastes, but the day belongs equally to all who come to share in the celebration. Remember, as the wedding couple, you are the star performers in an age-old pageant. Lena bet there was a clown performing in some circus downtown wearing less makeup than she had on now. Oh, she's a nervous one, I can tell, the makeup artist said. You need it for the pictures. Trust me, you'll love how you look in them. Her hair was pinned up like a crown of roses, cream with mauve tips, and she had perfect corkscrew tendrils dangling from each ear. Lena had lost too much weight in her face and neck, but when she stood far enough from the mirror, she could see the illusion and not the bag of tricks. She would be beautiful in her photos, and she would be admired by all her guests. What would she be when the day was over? The answer was clear. She would be a wife and then a mother. Her bridesmaids seemed to jet down the aisle, and Franca, who hadn't made eye contact all day, followed gracefully behind them. Lena took her first step and time folded to the vows. Her shoes pinched, and she needed to scratch under her arm. She wasn't sure what Father Peralta was saying. She had bobby pins digging into her scalp, or maybe they were thorns. It was so hard to concentrate. She wondered if she was slowly bleeding from the head. Jack took her hand and smiled. I take you as my wife because my life begins and ends with you. Your love fills me up and makes me stronger. I want you as my wife because the story of our life has always been about love. Their vows were a collage of elevator love songs. Lena was about to bind her life to a man who found music profound, yet she recited the words back to him. He was, after all, her truest friend. Jack said, I do, and she thought, I don't love you. But that was wrong. She meant, I don't gooey love you. Even that, while not wrong, was far too simplistic. Brides, don't be thrown off by wedding jitters. They are a natural reaction to this dramatic, life-changing event. After all, a dream wedding requires planning, but a dream marriage requires work. 8 days after her almost wedding, Lena's apartment had become the world's smallest labyrinth. Both her mother and Jack's had dropped off all the gifts they were storing. Neither mother was currently speaking to her, and Lena tried not to blame them. She still felt queasy. But underneath her emotional jumble, beating steadily, was relief. Lena's wedding guide said she had a year to thank people for their gifts, but was strangely quiet on the etiquette of returning them. Lena wanted to reconnect her phone line, so she was packing them up as quickly as she could. The buzzer rang 3 times before she could untangle herself from boxing up the Amish quilt her cousin Ensign sent from Ohio. She shimmied between the 2 large appliance piles, sidestepped the edge of her futon frame, and hopped over the wishing well by the door. She wasn't expecting Jack, but she should have been. He was just back from their Jamaican honeymoon. His friend Maria had taken her seat on the plane. Lena looked at the floor, which was littered with plastic wrap and packing peanuts, then motioned him through with the scissors she held. "You returning them?" he said. Lena's head jerked up. Their eyes met, and she didn't burst into flames. Being on fire might have felt better. "Well, we can't keep them." Jack pulled a vacuum from one of the piles. "You got cold feet." He kicked aside the paper trash, set the box down, and used it as a chair. "We're still getting married." Lena flinched, and Jack looked away. How was the trip?" she blurted. After a brutal pause, he said, "You should have been there." She sat on the edge of the box, her back to his. "Jack, I know it's lame, but I'm really, truly sorry. It was cold feet." "It wasn't, Jack." Lena failed to follow up with a convincing explanation. Maria left her husband. He mentioned it as if they were having a casual conversation. His married friend's crush had been a long-running joke between them. "Opportunist slut." Lena would track down her box and smash it. "I put $8,000 into our wedding," he said. "I'll pay you back, Jack, I promise." She was already looking for a second job. "You promised to be my wife." Lena croaked. I know. "My mother hates you." "My mother hates me," she replied. "And I hate you." Lena pursed her lips and nodded. "I understand. Just tell me why. One good reason." Lena sucked her lip, considering how close to the truth she could take him. "You've been bossing me around since we were kids, and I haven't budged. But you believe marriage will change that." Jack put his thumb to the spot between her shoulder blades where she carried her tension, and her body leaned into his touch, her neck rolling to meet his lips. "Maria said she loves me," he breathed into her ear. Lena stood up slowly and opened the door. "You need to leave now, Jack." He kicked the box, carving a semicircle in the cardboard. "I hope you rot in here." He brushed past her into the stairs, which he took 2 at a time. "A lonely old woman with cats who feed on you to stay alive." His voice echoed in the stairway as she shut the door. Lena focused on breathing as she sidestepped, shimmied, and worked her way back to the half-packaged gift on the other side of the room. As she cut out squares of brown packing paper and taped and addressed one gift and then another, she thought about the possibility of being an old woman with cats, the girl who loved Catwoman and was always in trouble, and the woman she was now, cat-free, but still in trouble. Thank you.